This book does not preach hatred for Muslims. It focuses on the origins of the Koran and specific portions thereof which must be of concern to non-Muslims, infidels. The knowledge derived from this book will allow us infidels to defend ourselves against the threat of Islamic jihad. Infidels are anyone who reject Islam. Don't follow Islam? Then you are an infidel and an enemy to the Muslims. There is no question that Islamic jihad poses a clear and present danger to all non-Muslims. Western mainstream media, and indeed most Western governments, would have us believe that Islamic jihad is a concept followed by a small minority of Muslims. This belief reflects an ignorance of the Quran's precepts. Islam is not merely a religion, but an all-encompassing cultural system that does not distinguish between religion and government. Muslim theology says the Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel as directed by Allah. Moreover, the Quran has remained unchanged through the centuries. However, Muhammad was illiterate and did not write down the revelations while he was alive. While some of the Quran may have been written down before Muhammad's death in 632, the bulk of the Quran were preserved in the memories of Muhammad's closest allies. The task of collecting Muhammad's revelations in writing began only after Muhammad and other early Muslims started dying off. The earlier verses or chapters of the Quran were revealed to Muhammad early in his life when the Muslims were a small group lacking military power. The later verses revealed to Muhammad came as Muslims were becoming a formidable military adversary. Muslims hold Islam as the oldest religion on earth, predating Judaism and Christianity. Islamic teachings hold that the Quran was revealed to Jews and Christians, but that they perverted or twisted Allah's Quran. This might explain why the Quran includes many biblical stories familiar to Jews and Christians. For instance, the Quran includes a variation of the story of Adam and Eve. In any event, Muhammad's prophecies are codified in the current Quran and form the core belief system of over 1 billion Muslims worldwide. Unfortunately, large numbers of these Muslims actually have no idea of what the Quran instructs. They literally cannot read it. The Quran is an Arabic book written in Arabic. All Muslims are required to recite their prayers in Arabic, even if they do not speak or understand Arabic. How does this issue impact the debate about Islamic terrorism? The bottom line is that those Muslims who cannot read the Arabic Quran learned Islam at the local mosque. That which is taught at the local mosque is only as good as the imam teaching it. The problem with Quranic translation is that many phrases of the Quran that seem benign in English or any other language are in fact quite malignant taken in their original Arabic context. This book does a fine job discussing this issue. There is an important concept that must be understood when determining whether any particular verse of the Quran must be followed by Muslims today. When an earlier verse in the Quran is contradicted by a subsequent verse, the earlier verse is abrogated, canceled out. Mainstream Islamic tradition holds abrogation as an important tool in determining what Muslims are in fact required to do by Allah. Keep in mind, from a pragmatic viewpoint, that the initial verses came down when Muhammad was a powerless prophet. The later verses came down after Muhammad became the leader of a great army. Therefore, the later Quranic verses of warfare against infidels takes precedence over the earlier peaceful revelations. The later chapters require war against the infidels. Thus, Muslims hold that they have an obligation of holy war, jihad, against every non-Muslim. In the meantime, We infidels need to protect ourselves and defend our free societies. It is futile to pretend the threat to non-Muslims doesn't exist and for government officials to merely hope that the threat of jihad will merely go away. Islam, as a religion, includes an approved doctrine of deception. The Koran actually permits Muslims to lie where it will serve the furtherance of Islam. Thus, even those Muslims who understand that Islam's early peaceful verses were abrogated, cancelled out, by later militant verses, are permitted to hold up those earlier verses as proof of Islam as a tolerant and peaceful religion. Yes, it is true that this book portrays a rather bleak future for us lowly infidels, as dictated by the Koran. However, the goal of sharing this book with us infidels is done to allow us to properly evaluate the threat that Islamic jihad poses to us in our world. Bottom line, this book is a must-read.